Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda.
Hare Krishna, welcome. Here we are again, Bhagavad-gita as it is, our channel, because we have the book Bhagavad-gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And my name is Labangalattika, and I am very happy to have entered into the 7th chapter where we have knowledge of the Absolute. And I am asking you to keep an open mind, because we are modern people and we are used to knowledge being presented to us in a specific form, in the scientific form. And here, some of this knowledge will be presented in a more poetic form, but that poetic, simple line from Krishna's mouth to our ear contains a deeper knowledge. And it contains that sort of knowledge that we can bring with us in order to... We want to be Krishna conscious, that's the expression, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And that means being aware of Krishna, Krishna's presence, Krishna's personality, Krishna's attributes at every step. So the more opportunities we have of having specific knowledge of Krishna, the more, the bigger the likelihood to actually remember him and to see him as he describes himself. So I'm reading text 5 in the 7th chapter. And all of these verses are very familiar. So if you study Bhagavad Gita by learning some verses by heart, this is another one you can put on your list if you like. Text 5. Aparayamitastvanyang prakriting vidhime param jiva bhutang mahabaho yayedang dharyate jagat. Besides these, O mighty armed Arjuna, there is another superior energy of mind which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. Purport. Here it is clearly mentioned that the living entities belong to the superior nature or energy of the Supreme Lord. The inferior energy is matter manifested in different elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Yeah, this we heard in the previous verse. Both forms of material nature, namely gross, earth, etc., and subtle, mind, etc., are products of the inferior energy. The living entities who are exploiting these inferior energies for different purposes are the superior energy of the Supreme Lord, and it is due to this energy that the entire material world functions. Yes. So if we have just elements, they will be there. Nothing will happen. We know that. If we have experienced the death of someone we know, then we can see that the whole body is there. Everything is there. The skin, the hair, the eyes, the internal organs. But there is no one there. It is just a lump of inert matter. But when the soul is present, then consciousness is present. Then the matter becomes activated. Okay, you cannot add a soul to a body that's already dead. But every living body is alive because of the presence of the soul. That goes for human beings, that goes for animals, that even goes for plants. So that is a superior energy, because that energy has consciousness. That is us. The cosmic manifestation has no power to act unless it is moved by the superior energy, the living entity. Energies are always controlled by the energetic, and therefore the living entities are always controlled by the Lord. They have no independent existence. They are never equally powerful as unintelligent men think. The distinction between the living entity and the Lord is described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Yes, I will read this verse. I just wanted to mention it again here, how we hear of the external energy, the physical energies, the separated energies, earth, water, fire, and so on. And those combinations of elements that turn into bodies, when the living entity is present, the soul is present, then they become activated because we are present. And then Prabhupada goes on to say, but we are also an energy of the Supreme, we're also coming from him, so we're always dependent on him, and he's the one that make something happen. And this chapter is there that we can learn about these things. So the Bhagavatam has a verse here that I will read. Paramita druvas tanubrityos jadi sarvagatas tarhina shashyatetiniyamo druvane tarata ajanicha yanmayang tat avimuchya niyantri bhavet samam anujanatang yadamatang mata dushtataya. Dushtataya, that's what it says. O Supreme Eternal, if the embodied living entities were eternal and all-pervading like you, then they would not be under your control. But if the living entities are accepted as minute energies of your Lordship, then they are at once subject to your supreme control. Therefore, real liberation entails surrendering by the living entities to your control, and that surrender will make them happy. In that constitutional position only can they be controllers. Therefore, men with limited knowledge who advocate the monistic theory that God and the living entities are equal in all respects are actually guided by a faulty and polluted opinion. Yes. This is quite interesting because sometimes it's said a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. It's better to have no knowledge or to have complete knowledge. So it often happens when we start to take an interest in spiritual life and we come in touch with these philosophies, that the monistic philosophy appears somewhat attractive. Sorry about this, sorry. It's very slippery. Yeah. So in the monistic philosophy we understand I'm not this body, I'm separate from the body, and when I give up that connection to the body, then my spiritual nature will merge with all the other spiritual nature. And this sounds attractive and it sounds logical and it sounds practical also. Actually, it doesn't make any sense at all. Because yes, in the bigger picture, we can distinguish the spiritual qualities and the elements and the material elements. So the material elements, they are inert matter and they are inferior. The spiritual spark within the body is spiritual and is constitutionally eternal spirit soul. And one way of understanding the soul is to see that it as being part of Brahman. And all the parts of Brahman is Brahman altogether. And that's true. But it's not the complete realization and it's not the complete description. So if we get stuck in that idea, like they give these examples, if you have earthen pots and inside of them is air, and then you break the pots and then the air merges with the air. But we are not air, we are persons, we are individuals. And if we would be of one undifferentiated spiritual energy, then how can we be here as individuals, whereas somewhere this Brahman is still going on being spiritual, and then we are little parts of Brahman who have somehow or another become cut off from the main Brahman and fallen into illusion. That would actually prove that the Brahman is not an undifferentiated oneness, because if it was, then what are we doing here? There are no really good answers to that. And I'm not even going to get further into that argument. I just wanted to mention it because that is often like the first understanding, and we don't want to get stuck on that first understanding. We want to go all the way to our complete realization of our spiritual nature, and therefore Bhagavad-gita's knowledge is here to help us establish what is what. The Supreme Lord, Krishna, is the only controller, and all living entities are controlled by him. These living entities are his superior energy because the quality of their existence is one and the same with the Supreme, but they are never equal to the Lord in quantity of power. While exploiting the gross and subtle inferior energy matter, the superior energy, the living entity, forgets his real spiritual mind and intelligence. This forgetfulness is due to the influence of matter upon the living entity. But when the living entity becomes free from the influence of the illusory material energy, he attains the stage called mukti or liberation. The false ego, under the influence of material illusion, thinks, I am matter and material acquisitions are mine. We would never think like that, right? It's very easy to fall into that identification. It's very difficult to get out of it. And we can't get out of it by just doing some philosophical juggling of words and terms and prove to ourselves that we're very intelligent. We have to develop a realization. We have to get in touch with our inner spiritual nature and in touch with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But in order, as I said, in order to not just go with the first suggestion, because this is very, very pervasive understanding, that, either the understanding is that meeting God means religion, where we do our duties, and then we may go to heaven. That is very much of an oversimplification, really. Because if we're sincere and we want to come to God, whatever religion we start with, He will respond to our attempts. But if we use religion as a kind of material thing, the way to get good things, to get a good life, to get a good position, and then in the end, going to heaven isn't necessarily a spiritual thing. The Vedas describe heavenly planets that are within this material realm. So we don't want to make that mistake. We definitely don't want to make the mistake of becoming monists, of believing that everything is one, and therefore we just give up this material illusion, and then we're one with everything. There is a joke, and I can never resist a joke. There is this monistic follower, this Mayavadi, who comes to the hot dog stand, and the man asks him, "What do you want?" And then he says, "Make me one with everything." That's a nice desire. We're not going to be one with everything. We're going to be a little separated parts at the same time as we are part of Krishna's energy. So that's the reality, and that's what we want to aim for. His actual position is realized when he's liberated from all material ideas, including the conception of his becoming one in all respects with God. Therefore, one may conclude that the Gita confirms the living entity to be only one of the multi-energies of Krishna, and when this energy is freed from material contamination, it becomes fully Krishna conscious and liberated. So yes, this is our natural position. Our natural position is to be free from this entanglement of matter, to be free from the illusion that we are this body, to be free from material desires that drag us here and there. But that freedom is available to us, but we need to reach for it. We need to desire it. And therefore we read Bhagavad-gita for, it's not just a motivational speech. It could be a motivational speech. Krishna is standing there with Arjuna on the battlefield, and he's saying, yes, do it. Go on the battlefield and just get it done. He doesn't do that. He goes through a very deep philosophical discussion on the meaning of life from every possible angle. So we have the advantage of having Bhagavad-gita available to us. We will read the different chapters, the different verses. And here, knowledge of the Absolute includes knowing what we are not. We are not matter, and we are not the complete Absolute. We are that Tatastha Shakti, the marginal energy that sometimes is attracted and covered by the material energy, and sometimes it's drawn to the spiritual energy. But we can choose. Tatastha means that little strip of land on the beach. When the ocean comes in, it covers it. When the ocean pulls back, it's land again. So we are like that, but we are not as helpless as the sand on the beach. We can call out to Krishna, and especially by studying Bhagavad-gita and getting a very good basis of understanding and knowledge, it will be easier. It will be easier for us to turn to Krishna, to ask Krishna to accept us as his servants, because we will understand what is what. Thank you very much. I hope you will continue hearing the Bhagavad-gita. We try to put up new videos every Tuesday and Friday. Lately I have forgotten, but then they've been there the next day. I've never forgotten it longer than that. Below the video you will find links to finding your own Bhagavad-gita, finding a nice nearby Krishna temple to visit, and I would appreciate questions, anything that comes up in these texts and discussions. If you have questions, please write it below and I'll come back to it. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for watching. We aim for updates every Tuesday and Friday. Please come back. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down there. We also have some links and information for you. And there is, of course, the subscribe button. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
I'm a Hare Krishna, and I approve this message. Subscribe.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,